I mean, you could be on the move.
People can call 211 and report people that they see that might be homeless. The outreach teams will help people to get phones. We'll get as much information as possible, set up a meeting place. There's the hospitality center in Norristown. There's libraries all over the place. If somebody can get to a public place where they can meet, they'll go and do that.
But you said you helped them with phones, and that's kind of a game changer too, because I know that.
Oh, that's a big game changer.
I was, like I said, when we're looking for people, lots of times I'll talk to the local homeless camp. Always has a mayor, and I was telling them, well, look, if you hear anything, go over to the hospital that they were behind, the security department. You have them call me. And he was like, no. He said, just give me your number. And he pulls out a phone and like, oh, okay. Times are changing.
We don't have phone booths anymore.
Right.
And it's sad when I hear a lot of people who still, go back to the idea of stigma, and they think a homeless person with a cell phone, why do they have that cell phone? They have to stay connected. If they're going to leave their homelessness behind, they have to have a way to go forward.
Right.
And that takes phone calls, and that takes meetings, and that takes.
It's a tool that you need if you want to integrate in and be a part of society, and it slows down that slide on that downhill thing, because you can arrange a job interview, you can have contact with people. And I was one of those people that had a stigma, not like, how dare you have a phone? Why don't you spend that money on a house? It wasn't that. It was like, oh, that is a good use of the technology. And we're so mired in technology. I'm always impressed when I see it being used for the right things, because 90% of the time it's used for stupid things. And I just, you also said 211. I didn't know about 211.
Your Way Home is is a department within Housing and Community Development. The shelter's part of 211. The outreach team is part of Your Way Home. The outreach teams are part of Your Way Home. The shelters, all the family shelters, as well as Chalk and.
Is that in Philadelphia County too?
That's here.
Just Montgomery County.
Montgomery County.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that, and that sounds like a great service. So, so if you want to get in the shelter, you have to call up. It gets scheduled. You get interviewed, and then you could be in the shelter as early as 2 days, or a couple days.
You could be meeting with the outreach team
in 2 days,
right? And then during Code Blue, extra beds open. So there's a church in Lansdale that opens up for men. There's a church in Pottstown that opens up for men and women. They open just through winter month. And there's Salvation Army in Norristown, opens up for women during Code Blue. And then in January, they'll open, for January, February, March, and just stay open. Up until that point, they will open for the Code Blues. So if we get hit with a freeze like we did, 2 weeks ago, people will be able to have a bed.
But even with all these things open, we're still barely scraping by and, barely managing the problem. If things keep on this downward slide, and more people get sucked into this, you're always, it's like, it's almost like you're always driving around on E in this, and you're kind of doing the thing we used to do where you'd rock with the car to make, come on, we could go. And that's gotta be a strain on the people that are providing the services like yourself to know that, we're always having that struggle where can we get tires on the vehicle or this or that.
The thing that, for me personally, that allows me to keep going forward in it is every year I might be doing the same thing, but I'm not doing it for the same people.
Right.
So the fact that I see a turnover and that I see different people and I don't see the people we helped last year coming back again, that's all hopeful.
Do you ever get a success story where somebody comes back to you and says that they've got a job, they've got a house,
Always.
they reunited with their families?
Always. And that's why I stay, because people do make it.
Right.
People make it and they don't come back again. They don't need you again. Some people will need you again, and that's okay. But this work is very hopeful. It's great to see people change and transform and go ahead with their life.
I thought you were in it for the high salary and the glamorous perks. Hope is sometimes all we have.
Right.
It really is, and it's a shame because, like I said, the person that I known that got involved, you get on a slide, and what concerned me was you have a woman and you have a 15-year-old child, and the way I see it, they're just being tossed out to be victimized. It's going to turn into something else if they're put out there, because I don't want to say it because they might listen to the show, because I'm going to listen to it, but not necessarily the most street smart people in the world, and the people that get thrust into this there's no preparation for this. Some people are probably better than others, but there really isn't any preparation, because really it's your life is falling apart around you,
And people do take advantage, and then there's always other people who are going to be there to help people stay on track.
How many people do you employ there?
24.
24. And do you do anything with job counseling or things of that nature?
We connect with different organizations. We have some people who are taking classes to get into food service. We're doing budgeting and financial classes with people. We're connecting them with other services within the community, health services, housing services. Homelessness, when you think about the shelter, you have to realize that homelessness is a twofold problem. You need to solve two things: the immediate need, which is shelter, and then the long-term need, which is housing and stabilizing and jobs and increasing pay and all that kind of stuff. You don't leave the shelter and have your problems go away. You're still going to struggle, but you're hopefully still going to have support to help you overcome the struggle. It takes years to get from homeless to stable.
Well, how do you deal with, in the community, how do you deal with having somebody, if somebody gets there and they're just medically not within the scope, either physically, mentally, or whatever, they're not within the scope of what you can deal with? What happens then?
We're going to...
because you're not a hospital,
right,
and you're not a mental health facility, and
right. We're going to get the person, if they're medically compromised, we're going to get them to the hospital. And then from there, we'll look to get some kind of a clearance. Whatever the need is, we can usually get the help. Through Your Way Home, we have a medical team. So those people who are medically compromised, they're going to get a special team of people to help them manage.
Okay.
If somebody has substance abuse issues, there's going to be a special team to help them get things managed. If somebody has other behavioral health issues, there's a lot of support. So you're not just trying to do the shelter, you're trying to do shelter and.
Well, it's a small city, it's a community, and you're going to, because I'm just wondering, how do you know if I come there that I don't have a criminal background or I'm not hiding from somebody or something? It's got to be difficult.
It is, but we can check that. One, we can ask people. Two, we can do some checks. If you're going to do anything with housing, HUD is going to check. So you're going to keep checking that stuff. What we really have to focus on health and safety.
Right.
So yeah, if somebody comes in and they've been outside for a long time, they come in and they're bundled up, you might not see that they have gangrene starting somewhere. So you have to get to the point where you're not just asking people questions, you're not just doing an intake, but you're paying attention to them. Right,
and that's where medicine fails us, because doctors rush us in and out. They don't really communicate with us. It's like that thing where they find that the more people talk to their doctor, less likely are they to sue their doctor, because there's a relationship and you're building relationships there. What is the average length of stay that somebody may be there, and how many people do you have come and go in a year on average?
On average, we're probably at about 300 people a year.
Okay.
And on average, they're staying. The goal is 3 months.
So 90 days.
Yeah.
Wow.
Some goes higher, and some is shorter. Sometimes it goes higher because if people come in with a lot wrong, then it's going to take them longer to get out, because we're going to sit there with them and help to deal with all the basic health stuff that's going on. Sometimes somebody will come in and they'll be in and out of the hospital for a month, before they're even to the point where you can figure everything that's wrong and get their health back on track.
Does that count against their 90 days? Or
the goal is 90, but we're not... I don't know how to say this in a way that, it's 90, but we are going to take each person case by case at the same time.
Right.
Is the person doing everything they have to do to get out, but just getting stuck? Well, we're not going to just drop them because they got stuck. If landlords aren't going to rent to people, if somebody has a background, some people come in and they might have a criminal background, but it's old. They might not get rented to very easily, even though it's old and they have years and years of no record. It's going to take different for each person. If somebody's, sometimes we have people that really have to have first floor or really have to have accessible apartments, and there's not a lot of accessible apartments in Montgomery County.
Why is that?
There's a lot of housing that's older. You might have to go up steps to get in.
But what about with new houses? Because I see they're just building a disturbing amount of new houses. It always bothers me to see, they'll tear down 3 houses and put up 72.
Right, but they might not be ADA. At the rent that the people that we're serving can afford.
But are they producing ADA compliant housing? Is that any factor in what they're doing?
That is always a factor in what people are doing. I just don't know that it's some of this older stuff, which is what we're dealing with.
Okay.
Is not what the people we're serving need.
Well, I'm just thinking down the road, is the newer stuff, as it becomes older stuff and neighborhoods shift and all, will that be able to be utilized, or will it require modifications? Because I'm just wondering if there's any mandate to have houses to be compliant in any way.
There's always a requirement for compliance. I think compliance over the years has changed as we've learned more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was alive when they required curb cutouts, so things changed. So there was a time when we didn't require curb cutouts.
Right.
So some of this housing that's older, it might not be all modified. It's going to depend if it's different for a single family home versus a rental, whether or not the housing is for certain ages, whether, there's all different types. So we just know that when we have people who have a limited income